Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Evermore YouTube channel. It's Monday night. Me and Mark are asking the same question we ask every Monday night. What's going on? What's going on with the FA Cup, Mark? I fucking hate it. I'm sick of it. I'm glad we're out of it. Bollocks to it. How are you, mate?
Yeah, it's not been a particularly good weekend, has it? It's thrown up a few surprises, but that's what we love about the FA Cup, innit?
Well, some of us do. Yeah. But we'll get stuck into that in a minute. So to be fair, I'm only joking, but yeah, it was a little bit disappointing, I must admit, because all the shit houses come out of the woodwork, don't they, when you go out the FA Cup, and they all start commenting on Newcastle United when they haven't watched you like for a year and a half, and they go, "Oh yeah, it was a bit of a bad result, wasn't it?" Yeah, and you go, "Yeah, like, we've been unbeaten in like God knows how many games, and we got beat one time, first time since August against Liverpool when Jurgen Klopp's dodgy watch needed 4,000 minutes to beat us, or 400,000 minutes to beat us." So load of bollocks, but we'll get stuck into that in a second. But just before we do a little bit of housekeeping, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. We'd love you to come and join us. We've had loads of new subs as of late, so we really appreciate that. We're on 2,300 and change, Mark. So there we go. So I didn't actually count this time, so I'm glad you're there to keep me right. But we've had loads of new subs, so we really appreciate it. Just click that button. It's all free content, Nevermore. We don't charge you a penny. We're certainly not charging you 100 quid for a can of fucking pop like some other bastards are. We just like to talk about Newcastle United free of charge. So we're going to get stuck into that in a minute. And we're live as always, so jump in the comments if you can. It really helps the episode flow, and it really helps us. Just have a good chin wag with everybody. Like L. Stapleton, stay awake tonight, mate. Evening to you. Hope you're well. We've got some of the comments in there as well. Oh, no, we just got one in there. Right, okay. Let's get stuck in. So, yeah, you're right, Mark. It was pretty shit. We were live on the BBC, 6 p.m. The BBC were primed, gasping for a giant killing. And sadly, Eddie Howe's mags gave them it, didn't they? Especially Martin Keown on commentary. What a knob he was. He was pissing me right off the whole game.
He couldn't hide his delight, could he? I mean, he just couldn't contain his glee. There was even a line, I'm sure, at one point about... that this is what we all wanted, or something along those lines. When you're like, really? Well, you might.
Come on.
And the Sheffield Wednesday, it was so, the bitterness was there for everybody to see.
Oh, blatantly, man, blatantly. But, to be fair, I mean, we won't pull the lineup up, but it was a strong lineup. We were all quite surprised, when we went into that lineup. Obviously, Alexander Isak starting was a massive surprise for everybody. There was a certain player missing, which we'll get onto in a minute. We haven't forgot about him. But, obviously, Isak starting. It was a bit rusty, Mark, but there's some flashes of something there, wasn't there? He got into some good positions. I mean, he should have melted that header, really. He had to bury that header. It was a bit of a weak effort, that. But all in all, I was quite happy to see him back on the park and see him moving around and getting in those positions.
That's it. I mean, for him, I guess the period that he plays is all about is getting back to match fitness. Yes, he wanted to take that chance. I think that's give him proper game time, give him a little bit more match fitness, match awareness. He buries that, but there's almost no excuse for it. It's in a perfect position for him. A centre forward, you should be putting that in the back of the net. Not take anything away from the keeper in a cracking game. It was a good save. But Isak should be burying that. But look, in 2 games' time, he probably does. So we're not going to be too harsh on the lad.
Yeah, do you know what I quite liked about him, though, as well? Because, I mean, there was a lot of his teammates who should hang their fucking head in shame, which I rattled on for at least 12 minutes in my rant. So thank you, everyone who supported and watched that one. The second string is nowhere near good enough. I think we've all said that. Like every single person doing what we're doing right now has said that. But what I liked about Isak compared to some of his teammates was he didn't just take the night off because it was Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsbury. You could see he was up for it. He was trying things. He was pulling out wide. He was megging guys. He was always looking for the ball. And honestly, what I thought when he went off, I thought we were weaker when he went off, even though he was rusty. I think we lost an outlet when he went off. I think we lost a threat, even though he's only just come back.
Yeah, it is. I think purely because there wasn't another centre forward to really play. You're not going to get the same movement. You're not going to get the same awareness, the same runs. It leaves you a little bit open to the defending side, just being able to continue a little bit more. You've not got that quality in that position, that suddenly it becomes a lot easier for them to deal with, and they grow in confidence and can play a little bit more of their game against you.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, they were bang up for it. And massive credit to Sheffield Wednesday. We had some comments from Sheffield Wednesday fans on the video as well. I thought they were good for it from minute one till the end. I thought they were hungry. They wanted it way more than we did. Windass was right up for it. Should have had a hat-trick, really, in all fairness to him. I thought he was brilliant all night. The big lad Smith up front, Geordie boy, he did well. I didn't say this on my rant. It kind of popped back into my head. I was ranting to my dad about this earlier on. Now, there was three kind of every week Newcastle players in that lineup in Sean Longstaff, Sven Botman, and I'm trying to remember the last one there. So it was Joe Linton. So there was three kind of steady, first team 11s in that team. And I thought every single one of them looked knackered, really tired, like they've had too much football. And Sven Botman didn't look like the Botman that we've seen every week. He didn't look like a Rolls Royce, looked more like a Ford Cortina. But I think the issue that we had.
Don't be knocking Ford Cortinas, man.
I'm not knocking Ford Cortinas, mate. I could have said Qashqai's or something. But no. I thought about this long and hard, right? And I thought, why did Botman look a bit off? What was the matter with Botman? Was he tired? Did he just not like Sheffield? Is it a shithole? But then it dawned on me. It flicked into my mind like a switch, right? The reason that Botman was so tired, because he was having to do the work of that fucking idiot next to him in Jamal Lascelles, who was absolutely shit as well. He got off lightly on my rant, and he is crap as well. Positionally, he's dreadful. He was getting pulled all over the place. And on the ball, he's hopeless, absolutely hopeless. He's gone from having Fabian Shaw next to him, stroking passes left, right, and centre, running out of the back with it, skinning 5 or 6 players, taking all that pressure away from Botman to, this knacker next to him who just, he's just not a good player. He has not. Lascelles hasn't progressed; he's regressed. Mark is what I'm trying to say. Even under this great manager.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, he's not had the massive amount of opportunity to play, but I get it. Yeah, he's not kicked on. He's not been one of the ones that's taken a step up, even when he has played. Let's not forget with Botman as well. Who do you have the other side? He's got Jamal Lewis the other side, who was about as much use as a chocolate fire god.
He was awful. Just 1 second in the comments. I've just noticed this from Ian. Ian, I hope you're well, mate. Massive messages to Emily. I hope she's all right. The car crash there, mate. That's awful. That. So I really hope she's okay, and she's not she's not in too much pain, mate. Just tell her, even though she's injured, she's still better than Jamal Lewis. That might cheer her up a little bit if she plays at left back in the next game, mate. But I hope she's not making you do too much work, mate. But yeah, get well soon, Emily. Get well soon. Sorry, Mark, you were just saying that.
No, I was saying, look, he's got a knacker either side, hasn't he? And you
mate, dreadful.
Even then, you're going to look. But he was still head and shoulders above. He was definitely the better of the defense. I mean, if you look at the scoring, if you go on somewhere like SofaScore or something like that, funny enough, Jamal Lascelles scored higher than Botman.
Who scored that? Stevie Wonder. He was terrible, man.
Jamal Lewis got a 5.6.
What did I give him in our player ratings? Did I give him like a 4 or something, or a 5?
I think you gave him a 3.
I gave Lewis a 4. I gave Lewis a 4. I remember that.
He's dreadful, but honestly, he's going to look out of our place. I'm surprised he played. If I'm honest, I wonder whether I think we thought Byrne was going to play, but given the amount of work that he's done, sort of at left back over recent weeks, he probably needed the rest more. So I guess that was probably the most sensible approach. But again, you've changed 4 of the back 5, and you're not going to get the same performance out of him. And then you've changed sort of the midfield. I know Longstaff played. I know Joe Linton played. They were doing different jobs, and it's just not the same side. But their role as well. They looked tired for much of the game. I mean, they didn't particularly hinder Joe Linton later on. When he burst through for that amazing pass from Kieran Trippier, and then lays it off to Broken Wood, who just
rotten wood.
I just that gets worse and worse every time I see it.
Every single time.
To be fair, the sort of the three, there was the Murphy chance, the Anderson chance. I still cannot understand how he doesn't score. Again, it's a great save by the goalkeeper. I'm not going to take it away, but there's no reason why anybody in that position with a goal gaping doesn't just. You just got to get a bit of height on it at that point.
Yeah.
You know where the goalkeeper is going to be. You just have to hit it up. And then the Wood chance is just. I mean, he doesn't set himself. He doesn't get himself in the right position.
He could have took a touch, Mark. He could have took a touch and rolled it close to the keeper.
Absolutely, there was so much space, and it doesn't take a massive bobble. I did think that at first. I thought, was that bobbled on the pitch? But
PK said that, didn't he? Not chat. He thought it was a bobble. I said he's a fucking bobble.
And it's slight, if anything. It shouldn't be enough to put off a Premier League footballer. We'll give him the old air quotes, but it just, look, it stinks, doesn't it? As a tie, you lose to a lower league side. It's not the first time we've said that. Probably not going to be the last. It happens. There are plenty of other sides that struggled against lower league teams this weekend. So, look, it's one cup down. There's another one to come, and I think that's the better opportunity, isn't it? Well, we have to say that now because you're out. But I definitely think that's the opportunity for silverware. That's the opportunity for guaranteed European football and everything, all your eggs now in that basket.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, though. I think that I said this to my dad earlier as well when we were talking. I think Eddie Howe, not that he's being that cerebral, but I think Eddie Howe picks that team, and people were giving him shit on social media, which I thought was uncalled for, because the guys took us from second bottom to third in the Premier League. He deserves all the credit that he gets. He picks that side, and that side on paper should beat Sheffield Wednesday quite comfortably. We don't take the chances, as the lads have said in the comments. Anderson, I was disappointed because that should have been his game. He's been used to playing against that quality of player. He should have excelled in that game, and he didn't. He kind of shrunk a bit in the game, which I was disappointed at, and that shows me he needs a bit more experience in the Championship, possibly, to get his game moving on. But you look at the likes of Murphy and Wood, just absolutely awful. I mean, I've never been a huge fan of Murphy. I've said he's brainless. He's got no brain whatsoever. He just runs and runs and runs with a big smile on his face. He's got no footballing brain whatsoever. He can't take the right touch. He can't make the right pass. He doesn't make the right decision in front of goal. I mean, that one-on-one was almost like somebody paused time itself. It was almost like some kind of superhero montage where, the Flash is running so fast that everything goes so slow. He just stopped in place, and I thought, what the fuck are you doing? Move, do something, shoot the keeper or square it or do something. And he just froze on the spot. And you can't have players like that in your second string and expect to excel in cup competitions. We need to upgrade on loads of them. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Will we do it this window? I don't think so. No. In the summer, I think there'll be a big culling of some of these lads, Mark. A big culling.
Yeah, I know your rant was calling that these guys have to go and effectively they've got to go now. I think the realism of that is that it can't happen straight away.
It's not
you're
practical.
not going to get no, exactly. You're not going to, and it's a want. It's a necessity over time. But you're not going to get much money out of them. Let's be honest with you. You might get a little bit for Chris Wood. You're not going to get an awful lot for the likes of Lewis, Richie, Murphy. I think Anderson will disappear off on loan. He needs.
I think he will.
Needs to play. I think he needs to learn to play at a higher level. Again, he did well at Bristol Rovers. I think he needs a stint in the Championship now to go and prove himself. I'm not even sure that will happen this season. But the trouble is to replace those guys in any sort of quality now, in to build that squad up, you're talking into the 100 million, probably, unless you can start to bring in free transfers and that sort of thing. But that's not going to happen till the summer. So it is going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to happen overnight. We know that. I think your rant was perfectly done. I think it just shows the real need to get those players out. Thank you very much for your service to the club over the last however many years.
Yeah.
Sentiment's gone. Well,
Yeah.
you know, as a club, they've got to move on. So yeah, it's not going to be an easy fix straight away, but it'll come. Look, there's plenty of money in the background. You've got to stick within the rules as well, although some clubs seem to not want to do that. Chelsea. But look, it's clear. It's clear and obvious to the manager, I think now. It's clear and obvious to the owners now based on the performance of some of those players. And if it wasn't clear and obvious to the supporters beforehand, my God, they got a awakening, didn't they?
Well, they did. To coin a phrase is saying there that, you know, Sheffield have run a longer unbeaten run than us. To be fair, although they're a few leagues down, you can't deny confidence does carry teams over the line. But, you know, how flew too close to the sun, playing too many rusty players. There may be a little bit of element in that. Paul's in the comments saying he just watched Arsenal. They were terrible against Oxford until they brought on Xhaka and Shevchenko. Same story about their second team, and Oxford are not. Sheffield Wednesday, absolutely. And Maggot Drown is saying Oxford gave their all for 45. I mean, generally as a Premier League team, the fitness and the quality shows as the game goes on. The FA Cup's always the same. These, you know, the lower league teams come out the traps and they're plucky and they're full of energy and they go at it hammer and tongue. They chase every ball, try and win every tackle. And then normally on about the 60th minute mark, their fitness starts to die because, you know, obviously Sheffield Wednesday are a proper team, but normally they're like carpet fitters or fucking mechanics or something from Quick Fit, and then they start to blow out their arse, and then Premier League step in and do the job. I think potentially those Newcastle players underestimated Sheffield Wednesday as well. I think a lot of them thought it would have been an easier game, and I think Howe will be pissed off with that because intensity is our identity. There was no intensity from a lot of those players, I thought, Mark. I thought they really took the night off.
Yeah, it's such a straight. I mean, despite all of that, I think it was 22 shots, 7 on target.
I mean, that's poor.
Big
22
chances.
shots.
But it's creating those chances, and it's who's there to put them away. And unfortunately, it was falling to the likes of Wood, the likes of Murphy, that just don't have the quality and the confidence as well, because none of them are in that sort of in good form. So that sort of goes against them. I'm kind of giving them a little bit of leeway, and I probably shouldn't. But there was enough quality there. There were enough internationals on that field.
Oh, Christ,
to win that game, and let's
do the job.
I'm trying not to be too disrespectful to Sheffield Wednesday because they're a damn good side, but they are in League One. But like I said at the beginning, look, it's the magic of the cup, innit? And this is why we like the FA Cup, because this sort of stuff happens. It's funny when it happens to somebody else. It's fucking dreadful when it happens to your own team.
Absolutely. Just what Ian's saying then, I'm definitely not overlooking the shitness of Jamal Lewis. Ian, I think I said I'd rather have Leona Lewis at left back than him. He was absolutely terrible. He looked like he had never played football in his life, to be honest with you. Magadrana saying Joe Linton is a bad finisher. He missed a few sitters in the last few games. Yeah, I think with Joe, Mark, I think that he's the one who breaks at the play and breaks. I know that I think I've seen someone on Twitter saying he'd be a great defensive midfielder. I disagree with that because he drives at the pitch so quick and so with such power. You wouldn't want him sitting back as a defensive midfielder because he lacks that discipline. He'll end up making a rash tackle, maybe giving away a free kick, getting a red card. But when he plays in that all-action midfield job, he gets the ball, wins it, runs, and he either gets fouled or he slips into a better player. Sadly, in this case, he didn't slip into a better player, slipped into Chris Wood, who scored at Bramall Lane, not Hillsborough, sadly, with his shot, you know. So, but it's one of them things. We dust ourselves down. Tuesday's a more important game. We're going to get stuck into that.
Don't say go again. Don't say go again.
I'm not going to say that. We will play again. But just before the game, there was a lot of noise about who wasn't playing, and this went a little bit nuts, didn't it? So, Allan Saint-Maximin. So, depending on who you believe, and depending on what you believe, we saw some interesting screenshots in our Evermore chat group that we haven't shared in the slides. But if true, that was an interesting one. I questioned the grammar, but I suppose if you try to type in English, it's not your first language, maybe grammar will be a little bit off. But the rumours go, as everybody knows, that apparently Maxi had a fallout with Eddie Howe, and that's why he was hooked from the side. Now, all of a sudden, the story was Maxi was ill and he couldn't play. And then Maxi posted an Instagram post with one of the little emojis with little masks on just to make sure you knew he was ill. But then very quickly after that, he was in the gym. So what happened, Mark? What do you believe? Do you believe Maxi's fell out with Eddie Howe, or do you believe it's just bullshit, people looking for clicks?
Do you know, it's probably a little bit of somewhere in the middle. It's one of those ones where that he's probably been a little bit under the weather. That's probably not a lie, but I also think he's not happy. He wants to be the main man, but
he's not the main man. He's nowhere near.
And he's had plenty of opportunity to establish himself in that side, and he's just not done it. I don't think he's disciplined enough. He certainly doesn't work hard enough for the team. This is why you see Jacob Murphy come on before him, because at least you know out of Murphy you get graft, you get hard work. You touched on his stats yesterday when you were talking about his sort of his tackling and stuff. That's what you get out of him. It's not what you want from your winger. But
no, you want some creativity.
But you get that hard work, and you just don't. And even going forward, Maxi's not the same force that he was, and I think that's purely down to the way that Newcastle play now. He was the main man under Bruce. You played a lot deeper, which meant he had a lot of room to run into. He had a lot of space to get on the ball and just run at defenders, and that causes chaos. And it makes him look brilliant because he's allowed to basically do what he wants at that point. He's your only real outlet, especially when you miss Callum Wilson for lots of games in that period as well. So he is the main man. He's seen as some as the saviour. I'm not sure I'd quite go that far.
No, me neither.
But this is this whole new style, and it's all about the work. It's all about that whole work ethic and what you do for the team. And I just don't think he does it. And I think that can lead to the fallout. Maybe it's not the total loss of any sort of relationship between the two, which I think some people will lean in towards. But there's a definite hole in that relationship where he can't do what Eddie Howe wants him to do because he's just not that type of player. And I think we're probably seeing now the time is set for him to move on. Again, he's another one to say, thank you for what you've done. You go and play your football elsewhere and go and enjoy it, because what we want is not what you can give us.
Yeah, do you know what? I've been saying that for months, haven't I, on the channel, that I think there will be a high-profile sacrificial lamb, so to speak, of this squad that Eddie Howe has inherited, and I think Maxi is the prime candidate for that. I really do. For everything you just said there, Mark, I don't think he can adapt to the style of play that Eddie Howe wants him to do. And even if he can, for spells of a game, it doesn't last. It drifts off. He'll lose his head. He'll want to go and do another 6-step overs. He'll lose the ball. He'll put us under pressure. Howe and Tyndall will be doing their nut in the sideline because that's not what they've told him to do all week of training. You know, what Maxi has is he has the X factor. He has that unknown quantity. He can unlock doors and everything else. But I think, as Roger said in the comments, he doesn't do it consistently enough. Yeah. You know, you look at ASM, for me, it's copy and paste Ben Arthur. You know, it's exactly the same, but in different times of a Newcastle United era. As a team, we've probably got the best functioning unit as a team that we've had arguably in the last 25, 30 years. And ASM is just too individualistic to drop into that team unit and have him carry out the instructions that Eddie Howe wants him to carry out. You know, somebody like, I don't know much about the R because I don't watch League On, but, you know, somebody like Maddison, for example, you know, that's probably not going to be this window. And I'm not sure if Max will go this window. I think we were trying this before. Will somebody pay the money from this window? I don't know. But, you know, Maddison can come in this team, and I think Maddison could play the way Eddie Howe wants him to play. I think that Maddison could get into that mood because, you know, Leicester played a bit of a pressing game under Rodgers as well, and Maddison was part of that. And, you know, I don't think it would be a big issue for Maddison to do that. Whereas with Maxi, I just don't think that's his game. I don't think he's interested in doing that. He loved under Bruce because, like you say, the tactics would give the ball to Maxi and let him make something happen. The worst thing that's happened to Maxi is Miggy being so good. If Miggy hadn't kicked on and done what he did, we'd have been screaming for Allan Saint-Maximin back in this side. But because Miggy's become so important to this side, and not only has he got the work rate and the effort, he's also got the quality now as well. Do you know what I mean? So I think for me, he's really in a tricky situation. And with Isak coming back fit now, Mark, as well, does Isak go for that left-hand side? Do you try and play Wilson and Isak? So, it's one of them. You said something quite bold earlier on, didn't you, about you don't think that Maxi gets another sniff under Howe. If he has fell out with him, you think he's done?
Well, I think you were talking about tomorrow, weren't you? So, and
yeah.
sort of does Maxi play? If there is that issue there, and we don't know, so it is purely speculation, and there are various channels that have said that this is, tried or been told that this is what's gone on. If there is that falling out, does Eddie give him the chance? Or
show
does
me what you've got.
Show that ruthlessness? But how many more opportunities does he need? I mean, look at this season, for example. The only real game that he's played very well in is against Man City. Let's face it, when Newcastle sat much deeper and tried to contain City for much of it and allowed him to have that space. And he was brilliant. So he's done virtually nothing in any of the other games. He's not changed a game in really any way. His only assists have come against the 2 against City, 1 against Southampton, I think. And then his only goal was against Wolves in a game which he didn't particularly play very well.
You got to give him that.
It was a bloody good goal, so give him credit for that. Look, I just think it's one of those where he doesn't suit the way they play, because he doesn't do the job that he necessarily needs to do.
Yeah. And as Paul says, he's injured all the time. He keeps getting injured.
Yeah, and we keep saying this, but it's not that we dislike him. We love watching him play.
He's a great player.
We want nothing more than to watch Maxi play at his best, be part of that side, and create chance after chance. And he does create shot opportunities for others, and he creates them for himself. I just don't think he fits the style. He doesn't fit the mentality of the side now. And it's look, everybody can have their own opinion on it. That's mine. It might be proved wrong over time. I'm not, I'm not Eddie Howe, am I? Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it might get proved to be right. It might get proved to be wrong. But it's just my opinion. He's never come across as the player that you would want in that position to graft. If you're a little bit more,
it's not in his character, though, is it? As Ian says there, I don't think it's in his character. For me,
and he wants to be more expansive. He wants that freedom.
Yeah.
He wants to be able to do exactly what he wants to do. And maybe in another time, when there's a few more quality players around, actually you'd be allowed to do that. I'm just not sure that now is the right time in this part of the journey.
Yeah.
But again, if you bring another one or two players in that allow him the freedom to do it, he could excel again. So is time up? I know I said possibly, but I think Eddie Howe's would give somebody the opportunity. Absolutely. So I'm not going to go all out and say no, he's done completely. I think if the right offer came along, I think they would take the money and then move on and try and bring somebody else in that then fits the current mold.
Yeah. We'll get some comments from the guys there. So Magadron is saying I need something creative on the left, especially Maxi's already here. Use him now with better players and he'll fly. I believe it totally. So Maga hasn't given up on him. Shu saying ASM obviously believes he's good enough to play for France, but he must realise he has to do a lot more and toughen up. He does go down quite a lot, I must admit. And when he starts rolling around with his hands in the air, it drives me mad. Mark Pearson saying Ronaldo proved at Man United that you can't organise a team around one player. It's about teamwork if you want to win things. I totally agree with that. Kevin saying why on a Maxi hate on his day is the most exciting player in the squad. We don't hate him, mate. He just frustrates us, Kevin, is what it is. I'd rather have him playing for us than against us. Do you know what? He's the kind of player probably would rip the shit out of us, probably, if he did play against us.
He's definitely the one you don't want returning, isn't he? He's going to be that player. If he went to another Premier League, for a fact he's going to turn up on the day. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think the problem is with him, people, somebody mentioned it in the comments earlier on, I think it's a little bit of the Cissé's here. When Cissé first came to this league, couldn't stop scoring, had space for days, nobody seemed to pick him up. And then all of a sudden, people started to pick him up, sniff him out, and Cissé couldn't get the goals that he used to get. I think a bit of that's happened with Saint-Maximin. I think when he first came, they didn't know how to deal with him. He was taking you one way, taking you the other. And I think a lot of these managers are clever enough and they know how to mark him, they know how to double team him, they know how to frustrate him, give him a kick earlier on, wind him up a little bit like Wolves Zaha, a little bit like that. And I think that's happened a bit to Maxi as well. He needs to adapt his game as well. But there's obviously Maxi's one of those polarizing players. You either frustrated with him or you love him at bits. To coin a phrase, saying he disagrees with us, he's keeping the faith with him. Massive respect to you on that, mate. He's a quality player on his day. I just want him to have more days. I think Mark's the same. Kevin saying, given our squad quality, we need to keep him for the season unless we can get better.
That's absolute, and that's a fair comment. I think you'd only consider going if you could replace him. But yeah, you absolutely there is very little quality in the rest of that squad, and if you've got somebody like that, you absolutely have to have him around.
Yeah, I'm just laughing at the fact that Mox is shinned in that goal against Wolves. Some shin, mate. Some shin. Maggot's saying Shelvey's the one whose time's up. Well, interesting on Shelvey, Mark, just to bring that in as well. Now, I've got a bit of a theory on some of the players who I think may or may not come in this window. I think the FA Cup was a gentle reminder of how poor the second string is. I think Shelvey being knackered, the midfield is definitely something we're going to address. And we were talking about this off air, Mark, weren't we? That I think the Tielemans thing is something that I still think could happen. Nobody else seems to be moving on Tielemans. Nobody else seems to be making an effort to sign him. I think Liverpool are even talking about extending, Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita's contracts, which I found hilarious earlier on. But if you can get Youri Tielemans for 20 to 25 million in this window, and you bring him into that team, and then you can maybe push Joe Litton into that front three and rotate him and Isak. I know people say that Joe's better in the midfield. Is that not a deal worth taking for Newcastle United? And then you've still got Maxi in reserve if nobody's going to buy him, and he can still show up when he shows up. But what do you think, mate, about the old Tielemans? Do you think that's dead?
It seems to be. I mean, I definitely think that look, we know Newcastle do their business very quietly. And everything is speculation, and you can go on whatever channel you want, and they're talking about the potential signings and stuff. It does seem to be exceptionally quiet. I don't think Maddison moves in January. We touched on Diaby before. I think the thought is that Diaby is definitely a summer option. Tielemans is the obvious one given his contract situation and the fact that he's not going to cost an awful lot because his contract's only got 6 months left. He is of a very good quality. Is he I guess it's a question of, is he the right type of player for now? I think he definitely gives you something else. And it does allow Joe to progress a little bit more further forward. And he is, like you said before, he's great when he is the disruptor. I think Mark in the comments there has put he's a great destroyer. And he is, but then he's great at then bursting forward on those runs. Look at the run against Sheffield Wednesday. Exactly. Just that example where he's on his bike straight away.
Yeah, he gives it to a better player. We draw that game, or we even win that game. So
yeah. So look, you almost want him to be a little bit further forward. If you've got somebody in that midfield, you've got a midfield three that they can then cope without him being the ultimate sort of destroyer in that position. It allows him a little bit more. You've then got options up front. You've then got the ability to play Isaac, to play Joe, to play Willock further forwards, to play Saint-Maximin. And it just gives you more options. It gives you more options in midfield to move things around because Tielemans can play a little bit further forward. He can play further back. He can do the job further back that Bruno does. He can play the job further forward that Bruno does. So it allows them to move further, to alternate going forward and staying back and things. So somebody like that, I think, would be an ideal one. And like I
just
say,
think it's too good of a deal to not go for, Mark. Sorry, this window, that price, and that the age that he is as well. I just think it's too good not to go for a deal like that.
The only drawback, the only one that I can see, will be wages. Possibly, because he's at the end, and he'll want
big money,
top dollar, because he's out of contract, and that's what he's going to want is his next move. So is it a case of breaking that wage structure that Newcastle have? And I think they're already talking about doing it anyway with a new deal for Bruno, which would be, I think, the logical
smart business.
But if somebody like Tielemans is going to come in, they're going to want to be on that level. So at that, to me, I think that's the only thing that probably stops it in that regard. I think, are they willing to shell out that sort of wages now? And potentially you could get into the summer and start to shop further around. They're not going to be forced into that sort of transfer. I think that's the best way of putting it. They don't need to be at the moment, but he's such a good footballer, and to get him for anywhere close to under 20 million, it does seem like an absolute steal.
I mean, Craig Hope tweeted earlier on, didn't he, that Tielemans is still a name on a radar. So, I think Newcastle are just waiting to see how the window plays out so they don't get their pants pulled down. Just a comment by Shez there. A few guys have agreed with Shez in the comments. That's a new name. Please click subscribe, Shez, if you can, buddy. So he's got a point there. We're talking about Maxi of old. I mean, I think he has improved a little bit. He does close down a lot more than he used to under the Bruce regime, because he's had to do that. But I just think there is times in games, Shez, even when he's closing down, that he just seems to switch off that mode, and he goes back to a little bit of what he used to be. But you are right, mate. He was playing some great football before he got injured. That City game, he was rampant, Mark, wasn't he, in that City game? That was what you want to see from Maxi. You want to see him at full tilt like that. Everybody does. No matter whether you criticise him or you frustrate you or not, everybody wants to see Allan Saint-Maximin playing the way he did in that game, because he was unplayable.
Look, I think we got accused of being properly down on before. Look, is there a better player? Probably there is, but is there a more exciting player in the league when he's on full tilt?
No, I don't think
so.
Anyone comes close.
When he's on his game, he is absolutely sensational.
You'd pay to see him when he's on form like that. You'd pay to see him.
Yeah, absolutely. He's worth the entrance. The entrance fee alone when he's absolutely on his game. So definitely, that's where you want him. And if you could harness that, he has to stay.
Well, if you can get him, I mean, that'll be a big test for Eddie Howe's managerial magic trick. Is if you can get Maxi in the right frame of mind and get him playing like that on a regular basis, we'll have one of the best players in world football, probably on my books. But Sean's saying there's no Maxi issues as far as he's concerned, so he thinks it's a bit of BS. Andrew's in the comments, even to you, Andrew. Yeah, we're well, mate. We hope you are as well, pal. Paul's saying it's a blessing to get knocked out of the FA Cup last year. You're right. That did kind of galvanise us. Funny enough, Craig Hope even said that in his video. I was watching one of his videos prior, so Craig Hope kind of called that a little bit. He said tin hat on, I think, at the time, but he might have been right.
To be fair, isn't that always the call of the team that gets knocked out? Well, it's fine. We can just concentrate on the next thing. So
and there's nothing wrong with that. So Paul said, such a buzz to see Chelsea, Liverpool scramble because they can't get the Champions League. That is brilliant, mate. I must admit, I am enjoying that. I am absolutely enjoying that. That's what we're saying here. So Shez just saying one more thing about Maxi. A couple more comments about Maxi, and we'll move on. So Shez is saying Maxi doesn't have a left back bombing down. We did say that, Mark, as well, didn't we? Because with Byrne being there, he doesn't overlap and he doesn't give him that outlet ball. That's when we did a rumour has it on Mendy, and we thought Mendy and Maxi would be unbelievable in an attacking sense. Those two would rip the living hell out of a right back and a right winger. But then obviously going back the other way, would they be solid enough? So it is a valid point, Shez, that he doesn't have that number one left back.
The frustrating thing in that is, I guess that was what Target was for.
He was meant to be Target. He's not attack-minded enough, is he?
If you go back a couple of seasons, that's exactly what Matty Target did when he played for Villa. He was the one that backed up Jack Grealish down the left-hand side. He overlapped. He allowed Grealish to cut in. He allowed him to hold the ball and then play the balls through so he could get the ball in. That really is what Matty Target should be best at. And we've just not seen that version of Matty Target since he's sort of come back. He was great last season on loan, but we've never really seen that side of him.
Yeah. You got a point there, yeah. Oh, sorry, Bill, just another one there. So Andrew's saying it's going to be a tough 6 months for us. There's about 10 players in the overall squad that need to go. Yeah, you got a good point there, mate. Yeah, just I got a comment from Shez. Maybe you are subscribed, Shez. Sorry, mate, I just haven't seen your comments for a while, buddy. So if you are subscribed, we really appreciate the love and the support, mate. Thank you so
He's got
much.
the memory of a goldfish anyway, so, you know.
I know, mate. I'm like Dory, mate. Honestly, I'm like Dory. That's why I'm wearing blue tonight. I'm like Dory. But yeah, and one more on Maxi, as Ian says, get him fully fit, get him back in the starting lineup, perform, or get him fucked off in the summer. I think that's a great way to end it, to be fair, on that one. So well said, Ian. Succinctly put, mate. But moving on to the Carabao Cup, which is, no disrespect to Wednesday, the bigger game out of the two. We said that even in the preview, Mark, didn't we? This is the game that we all want to win. Win this game, we get a semi-final. So we've had our proposed lineup done. We're not doing a separate preview episode. We're just going to roll it into this one. So this is how we did have a bit of debate on this, Mark, didn't we, before we came on, about whether Maxi was going to get a sniff. But we went for this starting lineup, mate. So if you want to run us through the lineup, mate, and see what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, I think it's all out. It's get the big guns in and go for the win. I think you don't say anything more than that. It is play the absolute first team that you can get. This is the opportunity to get through against a side that you've just taken, you've cut to shreds, and there's no reason to suggest that you can't do that again. I think this, out of the two games, you're right, it has to, I guess it has to have been the priority. But you'd have liked to have done both, I guess. But this is absolutely key. The clubs that are left in the competition, I think now you're at the point where you get through. There's just a real possibility of getting to Wembley again, and then even competing to actually to win. So you have to play the absolute first team for this one and just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when Bruno and Trips come on against Wednesday, the quality just stepped up a level, didn't it, really? They'll definitely start this game for me, no doubt about that. I think we'll go back to that solid back five, as we said. That front three, I think Joe will keep that place in the front three with Miggy and Wilson. But what I love about the prospect as well of Isak being on the bench as a difference maker, a game changer, that if Wilson is struggling a little bit, because he did look a bit off his game, didn't he, against Arsenal? He was just coming back from that illness. Hopefully this rest is going to sharpen him up, under the lights of St. James's Park, packed house. That's what Wilson feeds off, so hopefully he will, have one of those games where he leads the line as well as he does. But it's great, Mark, isn't it? Look on the bench potential and see Isak there and think, if he's having an off game, Callum, he can come on and he can maybe do something in this game as well. So it's great to have options back.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and you go back to the Arsenal game where Wilson just looked tired. He's had a bit of a rest now. Comes back into the side fresh, much more attacking sort of intent in this one. And look, if it doesn't work, you've got the option to bring in a second striker. You've got the option to play Isak wider. You've got the option to swap them over. So it's much more positive. And like I say, this is absolutely one you've just got to play the big guns, play your normal style, go out and go and entertain and go and win the game.
Absolutely. Mark's saying there, once Isak's up and running, he'll be sensational. I really believe that as well. I think we saw enough in the Wednesday game, even though he's rusty, to see that Anfield wasn't a fluke. This lad has got quality in spades. Ian saying drop Joe back in the midfield. I do think he's better there, Ian, I must admit. Longstaff did look leggy, I thought, against Wednesday as well. But I think Eddie Howe trusts him in that midfield three because of his work ethic, because of the way he gets up and down, because of the way he throws his body on the line. And as we said before, I don't think you'll start Maxi. He could totally change it. Putting Isak on the left would be unbelievable as well. But I'm not sure.
Some of the reports are that Maxi will miss out through illness.
Okay, so he's still ill. Right, okay.
It does look like he won't. That could change. But I think looking at some of the reports going, it could very well be that he misses out through illness again. So it is a shame, because actually it's almost the type of game you want him to come back into, where you've got home advantage, you've got the crowd behind you, you've got probably space to run into against a defence that has been okay recently, but has still looked like it could be shaky. It was certainly shaky against Newcastle down. I nearly said Filbert Street. Down at the King Power.
Fucking hell, did we go back in time to play?
20 years.
Did you get stuck in that Jacob Murphy time warp there? Did you go back to Filbert Street with Steve Guppy? Steve Guppy
Honestly,
doing his turn. God, the Guppy turn.
I got stuck in the same time warp that Steve Bruce is stuck in. That's for sure.
Well, more on that twat in a minute. But yeah, I think Andrew's got a point there about Isak. Keeping him as a dedicated striker. I think you start fucking around with a guy's game, you can upset the player as well. I mean, I know Eddie Howe's been asked that question so many times, he's probably getting bored of it. But, I'd quite like to see at one point, certainly if we were to bring a player like a Maddison in, obviously I don't think we will this window, but I'd quite like to see them as a front two at one point. I know that changes our game a little bit in terms of the shape, but I'd quite like to see Wilson and Isak as a front two, because I think they would absolutely annihilate teams with their pace and their movement and the way they could bounce off each other. I think they would be incredible. It does seem a bit of a waste to stick Isak on the left-hand side. As Roger says there, he thinks that ASM and Isak will both be on the bench. But, I mean, imagine it's a tight game, it's 1-1. Even being able to bring those two on, it's adding that extra squad depth that we were lacking against Wednesday, isn't it? Yeah,
and that's, go back to what I was saying about Isak. I'm not necessarily saying you should play him on the left, but he gives you that option.
It's an option. And
it very much depends. If it is a tight game, but Wilson's not been particularly effective for whatever reason, absolutely you bring him on and he gives you something just a little bit different through the middle, and that's where he'll start. I'm no doubt that he will be a brilliant striker going forward. But at the moment,
Wilson's replacement.
Yeah, I think so. But at the moment, while you've got Wilson fit, he just gives you other options where you can move around. But I also agree with the comment about not wasting him doing other things. You're not going to retrain him into another player because you don't want to take the striker out of him. And it's too easy to do that, for them to concentrate on something else for too long and then lose that clinicalness in front of goal. So you do have to be careful with him.
Yeah, and Mark's right there. He's saying, I don't think Eddie Howe will start Maxi either, because that's where we got to before we just did the team. That I think it's such a big game, and I don't think you trust the fact that he can't track back and defend a little bit. But on a Leicester point of view, there's loads of their players out, Maddison being one in particular. Rogers has already said he's not going to play now. Make of that what you will. Everyone throws the conspiracy theories in there, but Maddison is not going to feature for them, and we saw how much they missed him. When we went down there and smashed them on Boxing Day, mate. But just a quick one, Mark, on the prediction. What do you think it's going to be, mate?
I don't think it's going to be 3-0 again. I think it's going to be a bit tighter. I think they've learned a few lessons from that game. I'd probably go 2. I'll say 2-0 this time round. A little bit tighter. Maybe it's one goal either side of half time. But yeah, I think an uncomfortable 2-0.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1. Actually, I think it'll be tighter even than that. I think Leicester might nick a goal. Just on Andrew's comment there, I'm the same as you. I love Wilson, but he does break down way too much. And I don't think you can ever really have him as a permanent fixture in your team, unfortunately, I think. And if he's actually chopping at the bit and he's fit and he's banging in goals, there's big pressure on Callum to keep that shirt, isn't it? Mark's saying Leicester will be no pushover to quarter-final, absolutely, even though they're missing big players. And Andrew's just saying there, if we were wise, we can use Wilson as an impact player. Yeah, I mean, you could. He's getting to that stage of his career where you could maybe save him for certain games where you think that's a Wilson game, that's an Isak game, and maybe just mix the two of them up and try and keep them sweet.
And we've said that before, haven't we? If you bring in somebody else in to take over for him, as he sort of gets on, he's still got pace. He's still got the ability to put the ball in the back of the net. Imagine bringing that sort of player coming on with 30 minutes to go. If that's what we've got, he can run himself almost into the ground for 30 minutes and probably get away with doing that rather than for the full 90. Yeah. So, I love that.
I love that comment too. Is that a Maxi hat trick as well, Shez? Just to shut those up as well, mate. Just to piss us off. That'd be superb, mate. I'd love to see that. I
think there will be some absolutely humble pie eating if that is the case, yes, and I will
plenty of comments for us, mate. Absolutely. Ian's just saying he thinks that Isak naturally drifts to the left anyway, from what we've seen. What a player he's going to be. Definitely first world problems for the two, and absolutely, miles away from the Ashley era. You're totally right, mate. And Roger's saying, given Isak another 45, get him ready for Fulham and protect Wilson too. Absolutely. But I think it's going to be a good game. We're all looking forward to it. I know a lot of the boys are there. We're not there, unfortunately, but a lot of the Evermore boys are there. We will be there at Fulham, though, so we'll be looking forward to that. We've got a big Evermore squad lined up for that, and we'll be going through our Fulham match predictions on Wednesday live at 7, so make sure you tune in for that. But just before we sign off, this is what's going on, and Evermore. This is what's going on, so we like to end it with a little bit of banter. So here we are with a little bit of banter, and who better to take the piss out of than a man who's probably earned about £49,000 in the time we've been talking, Mark, Cristiano Ronaldo. So if anyone didn't see this, where on earth is Cristiano Ronaldo? He did his press conference with his new team. The name escapes. What's his new team called again? You remember? It's not Al Halal, is it? That's the other one. That's the one we played. Anyway, so yeah.
Brain malfunction. I'd just gone completely. Somebody stick it in the comments, please, because I've lost the plot.
Yeah, you're supposed to be the stat man. That team in Saudi Arabia with the yellow shirt. So he did his press conference and he was warbling on and blah, 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 blah. And he turned around and he said, that's why I've come to South Africa to make an impact on this league. Close but no cigar, Cristiano.
Al Nassr.
That's it. Yeah, close but no cigar.
Yeah, I mean, the genius of that line when he's sitting in front of a
there we go. The boys are
got the thing behind him that says, well, what is it saying? Saudi, welcome to Arabia, and he comes out with the South Africa one. It's just brilliant. Wouldn't
it have been great? Wouldn't it have been great if he just stood up and went, "What the fuck? You told me this was South Africa." He just started going mad at his agent and stormed out of the press conference. That would have been absolutely class. Just a lovely comment there from Andrew. Yeah, thank you very much, mate. Anyone, thanks, please click subscribe. Really appreciate Andrew. You're top man. Thank you very much, mate. But yeah, we thought that was quite funny, being Cristiano Ronaldo. But one of his other teammates has called it a day. Gareth Bale has officially retired today, much to the devastation of our very own Welsh wizard Di in the comments. Di'll be somewhere crying over this picture of Gareth Bale and singing, "I will always love you" at the top of his lungs or something like that with those dulcet Welsh tones. But we are not going to read this out. We're not going to read this out because A, I can't read it because the font's too small, and B, it would take too long. But just a little bit on Gareth Bale, Mark. Gareth Bale's had a bit of shit over the last few years, in the world of social media and everything else and all of that stuff. But listen, this lad, mate, what a player this lad has been, not just for all the clubs that he played. He's all right. Not just for the clubs that he played for, but in particularly for Wales. I mean, I don't think there's a better British player that's gone abroad and played his football than Gareth Bale in the history of all British players that did that. There was not many of them, but what a player, man.
I think that there's always an argument from the older generation of Welsh fans that say John Charles, isn't there? But look, he's won 5 Champions League trophies. He's won, is it 3 La Ligas? And I was laughing. I was actually listening to TalkSport earlier when they said, he actually, because he won the League Cup with Spurs as well, which is a miracle in itself. So fair play to him. And let's not forget, during the start of his Spurs career as well, they were talking about shipping him off because he couldn't win a game with him in the side. So that's hilarious to see the player he then became. He was utterly sensational for that sort of last 3 seasons at Spurs. Particularly his last season was completely unplayable. The game against, was it Inter, when he tore Maicon to shreds.
You could literally see Maicon's soul leaving his body. That's how much he just murdered him on that football pitch that night.
I mean, it was just that showed exactly what he was. The number of times, and it didn't matter who you were playing against, who he was playing against. He played from the right hand side. You knew for a fact he was going to cut in and he was going to shoot, and nobody could stop him.
Nobody could stop him.
You talk about double teaming players and stuff, and teams did, but he was still good enough to get past him. Was it the Copa del Rey run when he runs on
he knocked it out and he put the burners on? Oh, what a goal, man!
Phenomenal.
Do you know the best bit about that goal? The best bit about that goal nothing to do with the pace and the finish. It's if you go back and watch it again, when he scores the goal and he's running behind the goal, there's a Barcelona fan that just goes like that, right in his face as he's going past. Go back, watch it again. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But mate, even the overhead kick against Liverpool, everyone was saying, "Oh, he's shite. His better days are behind him." You know, Real Madrid wanted rid of him, and he went and did that in the Champions League final, man. That's what big game players do, and what a player, and what a miss he'll be to the game, mate, because he was brilliant.
Exactly, and that was the thing with him. When he did that in big games. He produced some of his best performances in the biggest games, and he was brilliant. And it's a shame that he's kind of gone. So he's only 33, isn't he?
He's gone early, isn't he?
But look, I think he's not. I guess he's possibly lost his love of club football. I don't think he'd ever lose his love for playing for Wales, but it becomes a chore for him to play club football just to stay fit for Wales. And I guess he's got bigger things that he wants to move on to and stuff. And there's always a slot on the PGA Tour for him, and you get his golf game going. And
I heard he's going to take on Shooter McGavin next year or whatever it is for Happy Gilmore. Mate. That's it.
Is it the live tour that in the Middle East that they get paid an absolute for? I know nothing really about golf, so I'm sure it's the live tour where they're paying the golfers an absolute fortune to go and play for them. So no, I don't think he's going to go and do that, tongue in cheek. But look, just celebrate what a player. He was utterly sensational, and he's another one of the great ones that we've been lucky enough to see.
We've been spoiled this generation of football, I think. With Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar, likes of Bale, obviously, Haaland and Mbappe coming through. We've been so spoiled for a generation of footballers in this modern day game. So massive appreciation to Gareth. Apart from all the goals you scored against Newcastle, you bastard. We'll be glad to see the back end. But just to finish on Bale, there was something that made you chuckle, wasn't it? So all of Bale's former clubs tweeted and posted on Instagram all this stuff about him, and some of them did better posts than others, and it wasn't who you thought it was going to be, Mark, was it? Who did the good ones and who did the shit ones?
They were looking at the messages from was it from LA and from Real Madrid. I thought Real Madrid's message was lovely.
Quite classy.
They obviously put a message out that was thank you, but the statement that they put out about the sort of the key moments that he was a part of, and they wished him well, his family well, all that kind of stuff. And Spurs' statement was a one-line tweet, and they've gone on and put another sort of couple of tweets out with some goals and stuff, but it was one line, and you just thought, really?
Weak.
For a player that was that good for you, that meant that much to you, supposedly, to come out with a one line. I'm just trying to find it now. It just said, in fact, there's 3 tweets. Thank you for everything, Gareth Bale. Congratulations on an incredible career. Nothing about, we wish you all the best for the future. We wish all the best to the family. All of that.
Thanks for the memories and all that. And exactly.
They followed it up with saying genius, and he was born to play for Spurs. And you've got a proper statement out of
Real Madrid and LA, even the LAFC. But do you know, even Kieran Trippier did it better.
I say Galaxy, and I knew it wasn't right.
I know, I'm the same.
It's too late.
I hear LA, and I think Galaxy. But even Kieran Trippier did a nicer post than Spurs. Bale.
True.
I think the Spurs social media team need up their game. But listen, we'll finish off on somebody else who retired today. And this will be the last
time. Retired many years ago. Just didn't know.
Arguably, he should have retired many years ago. And this is for the last time as a manager, stroke fraud. We've got to do it, Mark. Have you got it? Have you got it in the locker?
I'm actually quite sad that this is possibly the last time we'll ever use this one.
It's emotional. It's the last breaking bacon that we are going to do on the channel. I fucking hope, for the love of football and every football club that is in it, I really do. That Steve Bruce has officially retired from football management, so he says, and he did a podcast that had so many dinosaurs in it. I thought that Sam Neill was going to come in with his hat and his shades on at one point, with Neil Warnock and Steve Bruce talking about the dinosaur years of being a football manager. there was something that Steve Bruce did, Mark, that made me scratch my head, even made you swear, which tells me that it was really bad. That Steve Bruce's warped sense of reality is he's decided to rewrite history. As Steve Bruce, just tell us about what Steve Bruce has said about Newcastle United in particular.
Yeah, let's remind ourselves of the line that he came out with in 2021. Excuse me.
That's how bad it is. He's choking. He's choking.
Choking.
That's a great comment. That's a great comment, Andrew. I really does. That would be amazing.
The Steve Bruce comment, when I see polls in the next manager and the fella from Bournemouth, I find it disrespectful. I've got to tell you, your paper, talking to the Chronicle, was gunning for a manager that got a team relegated last year. We all remember it. It made the news. It was pretty disrespectful to Eddie Howe. Let's face it.
Embarrassing, everything that Steve Bruce was.
And then in this podcast with it's David Prutton and Neil Warnock, which I was listening to earlier, and he says, I recommended Eddie to the owners.
Did you?
Really? I just honestly, you can't make him up. You really can't. He's just.
That's what he is right there. Andrew's nailed it, mate. That's exactly what he is right there.
Absolutely
he's the Donald Trump of football. Well said, Andrew.
He's just the most ridiculous man. And they got into talking about social media and stuff. And he says, when it's targeting family and stuff. And let's not forget, Steve, your son is just as bad at it going the other way.
He was awful. He was rancid, man. He was rancid on Twitter.
It's strange how quiet Alex has been on social media since Steve got him the job at West Brom, just to get him his own payoff at the end of that one. So
Thanks,
so
Dad.
that's possibly the last break in bacon. Where we are pretty sad. It was fun. But he's going to land up on TV, so we'll probably we'll redo it at some point. I'm almost positive, but he's just an absolute joke.
Lovely comment, Mark. He's a great family man, though. That was one of the best ones, wasn't it? But do you know what? I think just to finish on Steve Bruce, I think there's a bacon stained chair with a coffee and a bacon roll sat at TalkSport waiting for his fat ass to slip into. Alongside Alan Brazil, alongside Gabia Boglahor, who used to give every Friday off, most Saturdays off too, by the looks of it, when he was Aston Villa. He's destined for TalkSport. The conveyor belt of utter shithouses that talk utter bollocks is just where TalkSport thrives, isn't it, really? Failed players, failed managers, failed owners. Here's a job for you, TalkSport. Come and talk shit on our radio station.
Yeah. And they're not, and some of them just aren't the sharpest tools in the shed, are you? And they can be the dullest people on the planet. And when you've got the likes of Cundy and Murphy and Agbonlahor and who's the other one that used to play for Spurs, and Jamie O'Hara. Oh Jesus, he'll fit right in, absolutely right in. He's just the epitome of mediocrity, whether he's managing. He wasn't as a player, I'll be fair to him. He was a brilliant centre-back. As a manager and now listening to somebody talk about stuff, no, just please. And it will be a case if he's on, everything gets switched off.
Yeah, so. I'm laughing at the prospect of I'm a celebrity. I can imagine him coming back with like no stars, and he'd be telling the campmates, well, it's the accumulation of stars at the end of the show, He'd just be making up ridiculous excuses.
And if one fails, we'll just have to go again. Yeah.
We'll roll our sleeves up, but we'll try again, You just think, oh my God.
You do that far too well.
Right enough, mate. I know, mate, I do. The camp, it goes a bit camp at times. That's a great comment by Shez as well. Bruce was the last VHS through the Blockbuster envelope, absolutely before the Netflix era. And Stu's saying as well.
I completely forgot about Tim Sherwood in that list. Again, another good player. Manager, no, and dreadful. Just he does like to tell people they're doing wrong when he's never done it.
Yeah. DCB's asking what I think about Simon Jordan. Sometimes I find him quite refreshing because he's quite outspoken. He's not scared to say what he thinks to people. I thought he was a a bit unnecessarily classless when it came to Amanda Staveley, because he's obviously got some beef with Amanda, I think, when the takeover was going on. But he's quite an arrogant, pompous bloke. I admire the fact that he sticks up for his opinion and all that stuff. But you got to remember, he nearly took his beloved Crystal Palace to the shitter, didn't he? He nearly busted them, didn't he? Before he ended up selling on, I think, right towards the end. There was real financial problems there, I think.
The funny thing is, when you're describing him about being outspoken and sticking up for his opinions and stuff, you almost sounded like you were describing Piers Morgan.
Well, to be fair, they are members of the same club. Just one spends more time on a sunbeds than the other one, doesn't he? To be fair, that's the difference between the two of them, I think, mate. But yeah, I do think he's a bit of a knob. But I can tolerate him at times. I can way more than I can Gabia Bonglaho, who's just thick as fuck. Really,
definitely one of the more tolerable. Is that even a word? Tolerable ones.
Tolerable
that are on the run. Yeah. So yeah, he's a bit like Marmite at times. And I get it. Sometimes he's great, and his insight into running a club, I think, is actually quite good, because you don't often get that from anywhere else. But he does love himself.
Oh yes, massively. And he comes in dressed like some kind of fucking Willy Wonka style tribute actor, isn't he? And half the time when you see him on the cameras, Bruce is going to be a good company with Bet the Baglord, of course, his best pal Andy Townsend. Fucking hell, God, it's like a really bad soccer raid, isn't it? You would just flick off the channel straight away. You wouldn't even donate to the charity. That's how bad that would be.
Do you think there's a future for Bruce on as a co-commentator on Sky Sports?
Oh, I don't think so. So. They already got rid of the fat misogynistic bastard that was there last time. I don't think they're going to hire another one, mate, to be fair. So what a great way to end the show on, mate. So yes, thanks for the memories, Steve. And we'll be sure to flick the radio over when we hear you on TalkSport next. But that's us all wrapped up for an episode of What's Going On, guys. Thank you very much to everybody who jumped in the comments. We really appreciate it. It really helps these episodes flow. And we love having a bit of crap with you in the comments. As I mentioned at the start, if you're new and if you haven't listened to us before or seen us before, great to see you. Click that subscribe button. Come and join us. There's loads of room for you here. Mark's even updated the graphic. I've only just noticed that. He's updated the graphic at last. So, yeah, click that button. Come and join us. We'll be back on Wednesday with Evermore, with the lads, and we're going to be talking about, hopefully, a win against Leicester and the fact that we're through to the semi-finals. So have a good night, everybody. Go get some kip, and we'll catch you next time on Evermore. See you later.
Take care, guys.